Welcome to the College Knowledge Podcast, sponsored by the College Planning Network and Paradigm Financial Group. Whether you're searching for that right fit college, applying to college, or figuring out how you're going to afford it all, you're in the right place. You'll hear from deans, admissions counselors, student athletes, and scholars from esteemed universities and colleges around the country. We'll dig deep to uncover their insight and unique experiences. So whether you're a student gearing up for college or a parent with college-bound kids, sit back, relax, and listen. Like you, we have lots of questions. Our guests have the answers, and we're excited to share them with you. Let's get started. Thank you guys for being a part of College Knowledge, powered by Elite Collegiate Planning. If you didn't know, we have a free crash course on college funding at elitecollegiateplanning.com. This will explain different types of loans, types of financial aid, savings vehicles, and much more. And remember, plan early and pay less. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to College Knowledge. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, Mr. Joe Kearns.
Dave, I'm excited today, mainly because of this stat here. Do you know what school has the highest freshman retention rate in the country?
I'm going to go out on a limb, Joe.
Are you?
And I'm going to say it's the one on your shirt.
That it is indeed. The University of Notre Dame. They have a 98% freshman retention rate. And for those of you that don't know what that means, that's how many of the freshman class, what percentage comes back year two. That is number one in the country. And also, by the way, they have a very, very nice, it's at the top of the list of their four-year graduation rate, which, again, not all schools actually report, but their four-year graduation rate is almost 93%.
Wow, that's remarkable. That's a statistic you don't really find on schools.
That is not.
So on that note, Joe, we're honored today. Our guest is Dr. Joshua Cameron, the director of Notre Dame TurboMachinery Laboratory. Dr. Cameron, welcome to the show. We're excited to talk about this. I think you've got some cool stuff to offer. If you don't mind, I'm going to read some of the accolades before we credential you up a little bit. So you're the director of Notre Dame TurboMachinery Laboratory, which is the NDTL. You joined the school in 2008 after graduating with your PhD in, aerospace engineering. You run the program. You're responsible for where it goes, what it does, the vision of it, the expenses of it, the whole deal. You're a member of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the American Institute of Aeronautics, and the American Physical Society. I'm not sure what that one is, but we can probably get into it. So well credentialed in a very cool space. Is it fair to say that you're a rocket scientist?
Yeah, I guess it would be fair to say that.
Awesome.
What aerospace engineers are. Yep.
Yeah. And we've got some stuff in this show. He's going to show us a couple of videos from the laboratory. We're going to talk about some of the cool stuff that you guys have been involved in. There's been joint work at some big time companies with you guys and the research you're doing. So everybody stay tuned on this one because there's some cool stuff that we're going to talk about today. So with that, welcome to the show. Can you give us like a little background how this all came to be?
Well, I loved airplanes when I was a kid.
Okay.
On Army bases. My dad was a private pilot. My granddad was a pilot in World War II. And I just read every book I could on him. I was good at math. And so when it came time to go to school, I said, hey, I'm going to be an aerospace engineer. And I just loved it. And by the end of 4 years, I hadn't learned enough. And, hadn't done all of the cool things I wanted to do. So I just kept going. And then I ended up Notre Dame for my PhD and started building facilities to do this sort of like highly technical, high complexity aerospace research. And there was kind of such a need for it in the marketplace that it just grew and grew and grew, and I never left.
That's fascinating because you're what I would call the rarity in professions anymore, where you had a passion from a very young age. You followed through, and you followed through to the end. I mean, you can't get more credentialed in the industry than that. So first of all, kudos to you and congratulations on, fulfilling a passion there.
Yeah.
What made you decide to stay in higher education upon getting your PhD? What was the sort of push to that?
So typical paths with a PhD would maybe to go into academia, right? Become a professor or go to like a national research lab. There is demand in the aerospace industry. There's quite a bit of demand for PhDs actually in industry as well. And so I kind of had those three paths. The truth is I didn't really like writing journal articles. And so I wasn't real excited to like go after the tenure process. But I was being able to do the things I wanted to do here. And I was attracted to industry because of the applied nature of the work. You're solving real world problems, right?
Yeah.
And because of the how applied the work I was doing is, I was getting access to all of those industry problems, and not just one company that I went to work for, but literally dozens of aerospace companies across the world. I got to see all their problems and got to contribute to all their solutions, and so there was no need for me to go anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, the applications are sort of endless. You've got military, civilian, you've got small commercial, you've got propulsion, like it's wild. And with the rate of change of technology now, it's got to be like a consistently fascinating environment to be in with that passion.
Absolutely. I get to see all kinds of new technologies, years and years, even decades before they go into service. And I literally learn every day. Like, it's such a challenging and rich field that I'm learning technical stuff every single day.
So when you were finishing up your PhD, how soon did you know that you were staying at Notre Dame? What was kind of the process like that you said, this is where I want to go? Were there job offers before you officially had that? What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so for me, I kind of knew early on that I had a good thing going here. And so, but I also knew that I didn't want to be tenure track faculty. And so I became a visiting faculty. And that's, something maybe people outside academia don't know much about, but it's kind of like fake faculty or something. You teach a couple classes.
Faculty light.
Yeah, something like that. So teach some classes, you get an office and you just do research. So you go out and get grants and fund the program. And I did that for a while. And just like I didn't think I wanted to be tenure track faculty, I didn't love that because I found myself just really spending a lot of time preparing for teaching, which I like teaching, but not so much in the classroom setting, more in like the mentorship setting in the lab. And so I got a little burnt out on writing lecture notes every single night and grading homework and all that kind of stuff, which of course some people love, but that wasn't really the path I wanted. And so I actually took a step away for about a year and joined a little aerospace startup company and kind of did the entrepreneurial thing for a year. And that was crazy. Ended up in Dubai trying to get money from the royal families and all kinds of stuff. And but after a while, I saw that my research program here was still growing under the direction of my colleague. And there was really exciting opportunities to make it bigger. And so I came back here and kind of applied that entrepreneurial stuff to making what we do here a lot bigger.
Nice.
That's fascinating too. And like one of the takeaways that I think is critically important for anyone listening, anyone that is trying to figure out what they want to be when they grow up, it is as important to know what you don't want to do and what you don't enjoy as it is to know what you want. Because what you want, eventually you can get there. But man, if you can check things off the list and, wow, that's not for me. That's not for me. It makes the pathway easier. Some people it takes a year. Some people it takes a lifetime. But pay attention to what you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah, I actually had an experience during undergrad where I interned at a big aerospace company for the summer. And it actually helped me decide I wanted to go to grad school because I saw kind of the technical path that you would take in that company. And it was cool. It was super cool. I was really close to, the product and you're designing parts that go and fly and all that stuff. But there was elements that it was of like the technical challenge or the kind of advanced technology or innovation that we're missing from that kind of path. And so it's just what you were saying. I kind of realized I didn't want to do that so much. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to do that. And so that's part of what I went to grad school.
Yeah. And I think, there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in where you are now, you're on the cutting edge. So you constantly have to be revolutionizing thought, almost bringing that artistic concept to the engineering so that you are pushing forward the envelope of possibility and structure and all that, right?
Yeah, I love that part of it, actually, the creative aspect. It's a very, very creative job, research, and advanced technology. And when I say research, I don't just mean, at national labs or at universities, but there's whole groups at the big aerospace firms that are doing research or advancing technology, maturing technology for 5, 10, even 30 years out because of the long time scales in aerospace. And so that there are plenty of options to be creative out there and be innovative. It's really a lot of fun.
So I assume there's defense contractors in this arena. I mean, there's obviously Boeing and Airbus and some
Lockheed.
of the Lockheed Martin and all those. And do you do both civilian type stuff and defense contract work and stuff like that, trying to push the envelopes there?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with just about any big name in aerospace. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Aerojet Rocketdyne, and now L3Harris. General Electric, Pratt & Whitney, Honeywell, the list goes on and on. Safran, in Europe, they build jet engines. And we've also recently started getting into some of the more cutting edge startup stuff. And that's actually a video I can show you guys. I don't know if you've heard of Hermeus. You probably have. You have?
I have. So one of my fraternity brothers graduated F&M, went into officer training school, went into the Marines, came back, and he is on that project at a pretty high level, I think.
Wow, that's cool. You'll have to let me know his name after the show.
I will do it.
Okay. So
if you want to show that, I would love anything on that.
And so this is so Hermeus, what they're doing is they want to do a Mach 5 airplane. And I don't know if you guys know much about the history, but you ever heard of the SR-71 Blackbird?
Oh, yeah.
Plane, right? So the top speed of that aircraft is actually classified, but they talk about like Mach 3.5, and there's some speculation, I think, in the industry that it might have gone a little bit faster than that. But after that aircraft was retired, there hasn't been a lot of supersonic or high supersonic aircraft. Not a lot of interest in that area. And you guys might have remembered Concorde, right? Supersonic airliner that retired after not a very successful commercial lifespan, and it's kind of been quiet for the last, I would say, 20 plus years in this field. But all of a sudden, there's a lot of renewed interest because of advances in technology are making it like maybe look like a shorter putt to get to those high Mach number flights. And so there's a couple of companies out there that are starting to work on high Mach number air breathing propulsion. And that's really, really the most important part. Well, I'm biased. One of the most important technologies for enabling these, hypersonic flight or flight up to, beyond Mach 3, 4, or 5. And now you can go a lot higher, and missiles and rockets go up to super, super high Mach numbers, but they're usually one use. And so by sticking to this kind of Mach 4, Mach 5, you can cover a lot of distance in a really small amount of time, and you can turn around and land and reuse that engine. So we call that regime air breathing, high Mach air breathing propulsion. And so Hermeus, one of the first, they're trying to do the whole aircraft, but they need an engine.
Yeah.
So the first things they needed to do to kind of burn down risk was designed this engine that could take off from a runway like a normal jet engine. And then when it got up to Mach 2.5, 3, something like that, when the kinetic energy of the air slamming into you creates so high of temperature that you can't run a normal jet engine without it falling apart. They have to shut that engine down, cocoon it, bypass the air around it, and then light up what they call the ramjet and go into a different mode of propulsion. And so what we're looking at here is their prototype engine running in our facility. And we are ramming hot, high pressure air, 1,200 degree Fahrenheit air. We're ramming it into the front of the engine to simulate those flight conditions. And so you can see here, we're burning the turbojet. This is the normal jet engine, comes off of an old fighter engine. And then they shut it off right about now and start cocooning it so that they can turn on the ramjet. And we're simulating the flight conditions. And now you can see that. It's a beautiful sound too, And so this is, we literally did this in the back tarmac of our facility. And there's not a lot of facilities in the world that can provide the conditions needed to test this sort of prototype engine. Mm-hmm. So this was a lot of fun. This project, it was super short. Startups, they need to move really fast, and we were able to be right there with them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we had less than a year to add all kinds of capabilities: hydraulics, jet fuel storage. I remember the first day that we were supposed to run, we couldn't get jet fuel. We needed 5,000 gallons of jet fuel. And the air show up in Wisconsin was taking all the jet fuel. And we had been promised a delivery and they didn't come. So I had to get on the phone because, the startup, the CEO is calling me like, hey, man, we got to get this done. This was supposed to happen today. And it's like Friday at 5 p.m. I called the local airport and convinced one of the FBOs to drive their jet fuel truck from the airport down to our facility to fill up the tank. And those trucks aren't street legal. And so they actually had to call their friend at the police department and get a police escort to bring it downtown. And it was a lot of fun. So those sorts of adventures are part of working with startups, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. Listen, I can't not go to Top Gun Maverick, and like that's such a cool scene in that movie when he takes off on that thing and it just throttles it down. So that's awesome stuff. So go from this aircraft to space flight and stuff like that. I mean, you guys have to be involved in that whole environment as well, propulsion of that. I mean, Elon Musk and SpaceX they're now reusing their rocket launchers, which is fascinating at the same time. The question, how far are we away from like legitimate, like take an airplane with that type of propulsion, get up, go fly around, bring it back down?
So there's two types. One is spot to spot on the planet, right? Like trying to get across the Atlantic in an hour or two. And then there's what's called single stage to orbit, which is where you take off as an airplane from a runway and get all the way up into orbit. So those are kind of the two main places that air breathing propulsion is looking at. And I think that Hermes is going to demonstrate the first one in the next few years here.
That's awesome.
We're making good progress. Yeah. There's the economics of the commercial, whether it's viable and all that. I'm not the guy to speak to that. But technologically, I think we're very close to the first one. And I'm really hoping to see single stage to orbit in my lifetime. And I'm hoping that our lab contributes to that.
What a cool goal. I mean, what a cool thing to be able to say, like, yeah, hey, we're part of this whole thing. So switch back to students for a minute, right? Your passion was set early and you followed through. Are you finding that? I mean, obviously Notre Dame is a prestigious education environment. It is not an easy school to get into, but it's got all of the checks, all the boxes for history and, excellence and all that. Are you finding students come to you with that same passion? Are you finding those students that are entering in Notre Dame have that passion in aerospace?
They definitely do. Yep.
Okay.
And and we're, in part because they're listening to podcasts by Hermias, and they're looking at social media and seeing, being exposed to all the cool things that are taking place. And I think you said it earlier, the pace of technology maturation in this area is really rapid right now. And so I think there's a lot of excitement. They're seeing SpaceX launches all the time, and
Yep.
And they're sharing videos of, the Hermias engine or whatever. And so they're usually coming pretty charged. And in fact, we had started a summer internship program because there was so much interest and so much passion. And we now do about between like 10 and 15 interns every summer. It's a lot of fun. My staff's about 40 or 50. So like the building gets really full, and you got all these young people running around, and my test engineers, my research scientists, technicians, they love mentoring these students because they have so much passion, and it just kind of ignites our passion further. And it's such a great program. And that, I think, then they leave understanding, not just that this was cool and exciting videos, but I can actually contribute, and the work itself is cool and exciting. And they get access to our customers during that summer, so they get to see what it's like to work in industry, to what it would be like to work in that company. And it's a great talent pipeline for the industry as well.
Is that internship for college students or high school students? So it's just
so it's mostly we do rising juniors. So summer between their sophomore and junior year. And then the idea is they are sponsored by one of our OEMs and one of our customers. And then if our customer stays engaged with them throughout the semester, they can make a really strong case for them to go and intern at their site the following summer. So as rising seniors. And then once you've interned at the site, it's really easy to convert that into a hire. And so it's been a really cool program in that sense.
Like it.
So on that,
did I answer your question there? I thought
it was when you were talking about, young minds, it's okay. Well, we've heard different colleges. Sometimes they have programs for high school students. So when you were kind of getting into that, I was like, is that for prospective Notre Dame, the kids that are still in high school? But you answered it.
Well, but we're starting to think about high school as well. We're trying to broaden our impact on the community. There's a local vocational high school that's got a great machine shop. And so we've been sending them parts and seeing if they can manage to, make them, these prototype parts. And our hope, and they have been, and we've been using them, and our hope soon is to integrate them. When they build a part, the high school student will then come and work with our technicians in the lab to install it and actually see what happens to that part. So we've got some cool ideas for that.
You made mention of, your staff and the desire to mentor. You've mentioned previously your desire to mentor. That's the part you really enjoy in this. Along the way, did you have mentors that helped you, progress and get to where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And I still do, actually. So early on, of course, it was my PhD advisor, who's now my co-director. He runs the research side of the house. And he's a full professor. He's a tenure track professor. So he likes writing the papers and
That's
teaching.
a win-win.
It is. It's beautiful. He does the stuff I don't like to do, and I do the stuff he doesn't like to do.
There you go.
And so, of course, he was a mentor to me throughout my PhD, and we continue to challenge each other and train each other and educate each other. And then I actually find a lot of mentorship from my employees. Individuals who have very different skill sets from me, like, my business assistant director, she teaches me about business and, income statements and whatever it might be. And we've got a business development assistant director who spent 30 years in the gas turbine industry building jet engines, and he was a chief engineer, and he comes to me with incredible perspective that's quite outside of academia. Like he understands how industry really works, right? And how you really develop products. And so mentors like that have been really important for me.
That's awesome. And because we talk about advice all the time, and I have this theory on, the idea of finding people that you can rely on for help. And people think help is always when you're in distress. And I'm like, there is that. Certainly ask for help when you're in distress. But at the same time, if something's not clicking or you don't know what you're going to do, or you lean into the people that have experienced it and been there, because it can help at least give you a viable pathway forward, whether it's in your course of study, your profession, understanding what you don't like. It is an incredibly valuable skill for high school students and college students and for life, right? We want to help. Send your questions to info@collegeknowledge.net. These can be about college, finances, careers, and anything else you have questions on.
Absolutely. One of the things that we really focus on during the summer internship is teaching soft skills, not just the technical aspects. Mm-hmm. One of the main things we harp on, like from day one, is ask questions, admit when you don't know something, ask for help. These people want to share what they know.
Yep.
They're excited to see you grow, right? And so I think that's an incredibly important life skill. And I think the sooner, I don't know that I figured that out until grad school or even later, honestly. I think that there's a tendency for people to be to want to look like they know the answer, or, well, you're paying me to do this job, so you must expect me to know exactly how to do it, right?
Right.
But that's actually just not the case, especially not in high technology, right? And so the sooner you learn how to collaborate and ask for help, and the better you're going to be, not just in professionally, but, in your personal life as well, I think.
So great segue for collaboration, because I want to ask you a couple questions on that, because I'm assuming that you have this advanced laboratory, and not every school out there does, but a lot of schools also have aerospace engineering and also have different engineers. How much collaboration do you do in higher ed with different schools?
We're already doing a bit, and it's definitely on my roadmap for the next couple of years to really increase it. So one of the first steps we took is that summer internship program I told you about. It's not just for Notre Dame students.
Okay.
In fact, we usually have, I would say, not quite a third, maybe 25% of the students are from other universities. So, this summer we had somebody from Stanford, somebody from Rice, somebody from Western Michigan, and I think there was a University of Michigan and Texas A&M, right? So we are definitely branching out in that way. Another way is just through professional relationships with other faculty, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not the only, you just said it, right? We're not the only people in aerospace. We're not even the only people in turbomachinery and propulsion, right? So there's other big schools, Purdue, not far from here, Penn State, Virginia Tech. And so we interact with faculty at those institutions, and maybe we'll write papers together, or we'll share our research. We'll, take on each other's students. Share students. We've also started working internationally to exchange students. So there's universities in Belgium and Korea and Australia that we're starting to talk to about having our grad students go there for a year. PhD might take about 5 years. So spend one of those years in Liège in Belgium, and then a student from there comes over here, and that sort of cross collaboration is really, really powerful.
Awesome. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you just touched on, getting your PhD, how many students essentially, once they finish 4 years, continue at Notre Dame? How many go right into the industry afterwards? Do they need that PhD? What's the percentage look like?
I don't know the answer to that question, but it's fairly small.
Okay.
There are people that pursue a PhD. So there's master's degree as well, right? That's a kind of an intermediate option, which is actually really, really a great option for if you're planning on going into industry. Starting with a master's degree is a great way to kind of get a step up when you come in the door. and it doesn't include all the rigor of, the 5-year PhD, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that the decision between go to industry, get an advanced degree, it really depends on where you want to go.
Okay.
So a PhD is a lot of work. It's a huge investment, right? So there's no reason to get it if you don't absolutely know that you need it for the job you want, right? So it's not a good option for, I don't know what else to do. I guess I'll just stay in school for another 5 years. That's really not the way to go.
Got it.
The time you're finishing up undergrad, if you're not quite convinced you want to leave school, you go get a master's degree, that's fine. But the only reason to really pursue that PhD is because you've targeted something that needs it.
Got it. Speaking of targeting, the process for students, they're seniors in high school, and we'll use your, Notre Dame, your program specifically. What is the pathway? Do they come in having to be declared that they're aerospace engineering? Is it engineering in general, and then they branch off specifically into mechanical? Like, how does it work at Notre Dame? What's your program look like? When do kids have to make decisions?
Yeah, it's a mix, and
Okay.
I think it's pretty typical across universities. It is possible to come in undeclared and then move towards a degree in one of the engineerings. But usually engineering is a more intense program than most other programs, right? And, there's jokes about, that business students are the engineers that didn't make it through the first year and that sort of stuff. And then they go make way more money than the rest of us. Right. But it's a really, really intense program. It's like 18 to 21 credit hours every semester for 4 years solid. And so usually it's best when people come in with the goal to get an engineering degree. The course of study doesn't really differentiate very much until the 3rd or 4th year. So, the first 2 years of a mechanical engineer or an aerospace engineer, for example, would be almost identical. And I would say the first year and a half of any engineering discipline, chemical engineering or just about anything would also be pretty much identical. So the differentiation isn't, you don't have to know the day you're there, but you do probably want to know that you're going to be an engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have much different math classes, even that first semester, and quite a different course of study, even from like a business school or something like that. It's dramatically different.
I think that's a great piece of advice, to basically know what you're getting into, know that you can handle it, right? We always talk about the social, academic, and financial fit of a school. That's how you really win at the game. And that academic piece, that if you know you want to be an engineer, you got to be prepared on what to expect. Is there any other advice you would give to potential engineering students other than being prepared? Anything else that really stands out that you see some students typically fail with, that, hey, just if I knew this a year earlier, I might have been able to overcome it?
I think we already touched on the biggest element is, find yourself a group, right? Surround yourself with colleagues that have similar interests and can help you with your homework, right?
Yeah, love it.
And another thing I would say is there are probably more opportunities than you might suspect for help amongst upperclassmen or graduate students that are hanging around, or even the faculty might be, willing to give more than you think they would. So go seek that stuff out. And definitely just get that group of friends that can help you. One cool thing I've noticed about this latest kind of generational cohort is they seem less competitive, I think, than when I was back in school. And they seem to be kind of willing to really kind of share their knowledge and be more transparent about, hey, I'm weak at this, but I'm strong at this, and you're the opposite. So can we help each other? Yeah, so go for it. Be humble and go find people that know more than you do about certain things and help them with the things that you know more about.
Love it.
So what other cool projects are you guys involved in that you can talk about, that, just to sort of whet the appetite for the type of stuff you guys get into?
Yeah. I can't talk about a lot of it, right? It's for the most part extremely proprietary, right? Because these technologies are um, include incredible investment to get them onto an aircraft. A new engine is at least a $5 billion program that lasts 10, 20 years, right?
Wow.
So anyway, a lot of the work that we do is just making more efficient, better jet engines, right? But we're quite involved in all kinds of air breathing hypersonics, so not just the Hermes stuff. And like I was talking about, we're working with companies that might help us do single stage to orbit, right? Then we're also dabbling in the space industry right now. Rockets don't breathe air, but they do have turbomachinery in them. Most people don't know that. But if you think about the vast amount of thrust coming out of those things, where's all the fuel come from for that? It's pumped by this incredible turbo machine. And so we're working on stuff like that as well. We're also in the power industry. And so maybe aerospace doesn't sound like power, right? Like energy. But when we use renewable energy sources to generate electricity, it's not always there at the right time. Like you get a lot of solar energy in the middle of the day, but nobody's running their air conditioner until they get home at night, right? So we are working on technologies that do energy storage. So instead of wasting all that solar energy, you use turbomachinery to store it, and then you can use it when you need it. So those are just a couple examples. One of the real fun things we're doing right now is working on ways to keep hypersonic vehicles cooler. I talked earlier about when you're moving at Mach 5, the air hitting that vehicle is causing so much heat that you can actually melt typical materials. And so actively cooling that and finding new materials that can withstand that is an area of interest as well.
And I assume because of the sort of, I guess, the gamut of engineering that goes in, right? We're not specifically talking about air in the front and thrust out the back. You're talking about all these different, I assume you're collaborating with all different types of engineers and experts in those different fields as well in your laboratory.
Super, super multidisciplinary. I would actually say that on a day-to-day basis, I do more mechanical engineering than aerospace engineering. But it's all the same. You can't do a system like this without the chemists, the plasma physicists, the materials guys, the on and on and on. It's extremely multidisciplinary. Not even to mention the controls and electrical engineering, computer engineering. That's part of why I love it, because I don't have to be just an aerospace engineer. I get to dabble in all those fields.
On that, you talked about renewable energy and you talked about solar. How are we pushing the envelope on fuel sources? Like, are we figuring out like real high potency new fuels and stuff like that? Because I imagine at some point the type of energy that you're trying to create can't come from the burn, or it's got to be something at another level. I mean, you talk about nuclear power, right? We have that in our warships and aircraft carriers and submarines. We've got nuclear power plants. That's an incredible fuel source in its own right, very volatile and obviously has its inherent danger. Are you pushing the envelope on fuel sources as well?
So I'd say there's two main areas right now. One is called sustainable aviation fuel.
Okay.
So these are fuels that are semi-synthetic, or they're like biomass or things like, they're generated in a way that's like carbon neutral, and then you go burn it. So it ends up that jet fuel, that's an incredibly potent fuel source. Actually, it's really up there. The energy density, in a pound of jet fuel is really high, and so there aren't terribly better options for powering an aircraft. So being able to generate that fuel instead of pumping it out of the ground, being able to generate it in a sustainable way, that's a big area of research right now. The other one is hydrogen, which is a little more like maybe what you were thinking. And that is nothing burns better than hydrogen. And of course, it's used to power rockets. And now we're thinking about how to use renewables to generate green hydrogen, so that you can go power your car in a truly sustainable way. There's a lot of research in that area right now. People study, and not just in the engineering either, but economists and policymakers studying what would it take to convert from, diesel and automobile, fossil fuel economy to an all hydrogen economy. That's not easy. It's
No, certainly not.
Wants to burn. So,
well, and you also, there's the old competition factor in that too. Who's got the handle on the goods, and are they going to be pushed out very easily?
Yep.
That's politics, so we won't get into that here.
Yep.
So give us a walkthrough, or just your perspective, even just see it from your lens. You become an engineer, specifically aerospace. What are the opportunities that they have? What are the types of roles they go into? What jobs are they getting? And what's a typical life like? Like, we all know the engineer that sits in the CAD Works program and designs things, in that space. But what other variety of things do engineers participate in, specifically aerospace?
It's a really, really diverse set of opportunities. I would say maybe the majority of like the people that come through our internship program right now, they're probably going straight into industry with their bachelor's degree. They'll probably go somewhere that seems really cool, like one of the startups in Denver, or go to SpaceX, and they'll get burned out in a year or two, and then settle into a more traditional aerospace firm, a Boeing or a General Electric or something like that. And the type of work that they're doing is so varied that I almost really can't, describe it. Absolutely, there's guys sitting and designing parts in CAD. There's people coding, control systems. There's people doing simulations, computer simulations. There's people writing out math equations. I mean, very advanced mathematics. There are lots of what we call modeling analysis, trying to understand thermodynamic cycles. There's plenty of hands-on work as well. It's definitely not just in front of the computer. Engineers are on the manufacturing floor. They're in the test cells, putting together prototypes and taking data, and there might even be in a flight test, right? Flying on an airplane and seeing, whether the new engine works and that sort of stuff. I mean, they're just an incredible variety.
Awesome. I love it. I could talk all day about Hermes for sure. And some of the other, the reason I think Hermes is cool is because they're not hiding it. I mean, they're hiding their technology, but they're very out and vocal about what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to do. And the target set, we're trying to acquire this in a certain period of time, which is fascinating. From the SpaceX standpoint, and have you guys been do you do testing and stuff with them as well? Because they're rockets more than they are, the turbo air side of things.
Right. As I mentioned, there is turbomachinery in those rockets and those fuel pumps.
Okay.
And we don't work specifically with SpaceX, but that is an area that we're starting to work in.
Okay.
It's those turbo pumps. They're some incredible machines. Just astounding amount of technology just going into that one little part of, the overall rocket system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting too, because I see I'm on Instagram, and there's these little handheld fans now that produce an incredible amount of, like, it's like this big, and it can blow out as much as a what used to be a backpack blower, because they're using turbine technology to create additional thrust from an electric motor. I mean, impellers and jet skis and water, like it's all borrowed technology really from your industry, isn't it?
Absolutely. Turbomachinery is it's in absolutely everything we do, whether you know it or not, right? I mean, it's in your refrigerator. It's uh, it's in your cooling fan in your computer. It's how you get pressurized water in your house. On and on and on and on. Electricity wouldn't be possible without turbomachinery. Flight, right? Flight propulsion, not possible. Oil and gas, just every industry you can imagine. Modern life is enabled by it, and most people don't even realize it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
My last question really is advice to someone seeking this pathway and seeking, the opportunity. What advice do you give them from a guy who's experienced it from the very beginning all the way through the highest echelon of what you do?
Sure. Get good grades in high school. They don't have to be perfect. I don't know. My GPA, I certainly wasn't like valedictorian or anything like that. I got my fair share of B pluses or whatever. But learn the material, right? Actually learn it. That's important. Getting a good SAT score was very important when I entered. I still think it's important, even though especially after COVID, it's like they were, some people backed off. It's still, if you want to get in the top tier, I think you still need that really high SAT score. So buy a prep book and study the crap out of it and go get the highest score you possibly can. And then when you're in school, remember that you're paying for that education. We joke about education is one of the only products that a paying customer is willing to take less of, right? When the professor doesn't show up to class, you're relieved so you can go get some sleep, right? No, go, study hard and you do need good grades in college for engineering. You should really be working hard to get the top grades, especially if you want to go into the more cutting edge of aerospace. And so learn that material, really learn it, ask questions. And then the other important thing I would say is definitely intern. Spend those summers not at Dairy Queen, maybe the first one, but as soon as you have any ability to intern, and it doesn't have to be in aerospace. I love it when I see a resume that has somebody, hey, I spent the summer working at my dad's machine shop. Well, heck yeah, man, that's going to make a good engineer, right? Or an auto shop or whatever, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be directly relevant to where you're going, but go out there and get real life experience during the 4 years, and that'll put you in a really great position.
Just a couple follow-up questions, more specifically for Notre Dame. I have did you know that the 98% retention rate is phenomenal? What would you accredit that to? Is it the environment? Is it this facilities, the staff? Is it the mentorship component? What do you think is why the best in the country? Yeah. Why is that?
So I'm not teaching undergrads anymore.
Okay.
I don't have the best perspective on it, but I can tell you that the sense of community here among the students is probably unprecedented. I think it's part of what makes Notre Dame special is everybody's here because they wanted to be here. It was their stretch school. It was the one place they wanted to go. Their family went here, whatever. And when you get here, there is an intense focus on building networks and bonds within the Notre Dame family, right? So I think it's got to be that. Not to mention, it's just one of the most gorgeous campuses, and it's incredibly, it's just awesome. So,
yeah. What would be your favorite part of the campus?
My favorite part of the campus. It's funny. I don't actually get to be on campus very much because my $50 million 10 megawatt facility is downtown, about 15-minute drive. But when I come on campus in the fall and just walk in the quads, it's like I'm at Hogwarts or something. It's so old buildings and the beautiful leaves, and so that'd probably be my favorite part.
Got it. That was all I had. Again, great numbers. Just curious from an insider.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I want to reiterate a point you made because, like engineering, mathematics, the sciences, medicine, it is a progressive compound environment. And if you don't master the sublayer or the foundation, you are going to fail at some point in that. And so the advice to learn the material is huge, right? You cannot do, we've all done it. We've gone to the class, we've memorized the answers. The test really resembled the worksheet that we did, and you're able to just fake your way through it, get the grade and move along. In these complex, like stacking type learning environments, man, you really have to master that baseline, because you don't want to get somewhere and you go, I don't understand the bottom, and you fizzle out or lose it, right?
Oh, for sure. I can't tell you the number of times in a month where I literally say out loud to like one of my staff members, like, man, I wish I'd paid more attention in material science, because now in order to solve this problem, I gotta go teach it to myself again. Right. And I could have just done that.
It's a funny story. I was in Monte Carlo with my business partner, and we're walking, and there's Bentleys and Ferraris, and we're walking, and this Ferrari goes by, and we're looking up, and there's this just staircase in between these two narrow, really cool old city. And I'm like, man, I wish I studied more. I'd be chauffeured around in one of these Bentleys if I'd have paid attention just a little bit more in college. So, I mean, it's the truth. Even in my world, right? I'm in business and finance, and there's stuff that I go back to. I was like, God, and I've got to relearn the math or reteach myself how to do it. And, I think kudos to our education for enabling us to go back and relearn it, right?
Sure.
You learn how to learn, which is the most important part. But man, foundational components are huge. So I love that advice and appreciate your time very much. I think this has been one of my favorite so far, maybe because you showed a rocket, but
Awesome. Cool, guys.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. This has been College Knowledge. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and share. We can send your student to the school of their dreams and send you to your dream retirement. Visit us at elitecollegiateplanning.com to get started.